Today's video, lesson 219, solving a direct proportion problem. This is in your textbook, chapter 5, section 3. So you can follow along in the book if you want as well. Solve and show your work. For every $150 that Susan earns, she donates $20 to a charity. So what comes first is your Y. What comes second is your X. Last month, Susan donated $32 to her charity. $32 to the charity. To the charity, that's the X. How much did she earn last month? So they're asking me to figure out a new Y. Okay. The first way you could do this is by using a proportion. So I know that her Y is her earnings and her X is her donation. So I write little word ratios on the side. So she earned $150 and she donates 20 of it to a charity. This month she donated $32 to a charity. How much did she earn? I don't know. So that's an X. I'm going to solve this proportion. How do we solve proportions? We cross multiply. So 20 times X looks like this. 20 times X, 20X. No time symbol needed. Has to equal 150 times 32. So using a calculator, I multiplied 150 times 32 and I got $4,800. So my 20 times X, 20X, equals $4,800. Well, that's a multiply equation. 20 times what number? I don't know. Divide. So we're doing equation solving here because yes, equal ratios can be set up in this thing called a proportion. Two equal ratios. Here's the first one. Here's the second one. And I don't know 20 times what number equals 32, so I can't do it by figuring out, oh, what did I multiply that denominator by? I could figure it out that way, but I know 20 doesn't automatically go into 32 a whole number of times. So I'm solving it using a proportion, which is cross multiplying. So this 20 times X has to equal 150 times 32. And sometimes people draw those bubbles. It makes it look kind of like a butterfly. Going back to this equation solving here, 20 times X equals 4,800. I divided by 20 on both sides. Show your cancel. So you get X has to equal 4,800 divided by 20 is 240. So she must have earned, Susan earned $240. Got to put a label on that. Okay, I should get the exact same answer doing it method 2 way, using the direct proportion equation. Oh, well, Y over X has to equal a constant. That's the direct proportion equation. So my first Y that I know, 150, divided by my X, 20, if I actually divide that, I get a constant of 7.5. Well, that has to work with now 32 being the X. So I know the equation for all proportional relationships is Y equals KX. Well, I know what K is. So you don't write K. What's the equation that goes with this situation? Y equals 7.5 times X. My X changed, not 20, now it's 32. So just go ahead and multiply 7.5 times the new X, which is 32, and I'll get the new Y, which is 240. So yes, you can get the same answer doing it through a equal ratios proportion method 1. That's what a proportion is. Two ratios are equal. Or method 2, using my Y over X equals K and my Y equals KX. That's method 2. Let's do this again. For every 200 microchips produced in a factory, there are 8 defective ones. Yeah, sometimes you buy something and it doesn't work. If there were 33 defective microchips, how many microchips did the factory produce? Well, whatever comes first, that's my Y. So microchips is my Y. 8 defective ones, that's my X. So I'm going to set up two equal ratios. So microchips, micro I'll say for short, over defective. And I'll just say DEF for short. Microchips over the defective ones. So 200 microchips usually produces 8 defective ones. So if there were 33 defective ones, defective, let me see, that's in the denominator, so that has to go down here in the denominator. How many microchips did the factory produce? I don't know. I don't know what that number is. So I could say any letter of the alphabet I want. The first time I used an X, I could use M. For microchips, I could use Y because it's really Y over X. So it doesn't really matter the letter that I'm using here in this equal ratio problem. Well, 8 in my head doesn't evenly go into 33. It goes into 32, so I know it's a little bit bigger than 4, but I can't make it by making equal ratios that way. So I'm going to solve it using the proportion method, which says cross multiply, denominator times numerator, so 8 times M has to equal denominator times numerator. So 200 times 33. They have to equal each other. Their cross products have to be equal. The cross products have to be equal. So 8 M's, 200 times 33, that's 6,600. Well, 8 times what number gives me 6,600? I don't know. Divide by 8 on both sides. 6,600 divided by 8 is 825. So the factory must produce 825 microchips. So there's my table. The factory produced 825 microchips. Now, if I solved this proportion correctly, I should get it doing my y equals kx method. Use a direct proportion. So that's what we've been doing. It's called a direct proportion, that fancy triangle that we have. Might be a good idea to draw that here. Y is equal to k times x. So y over x gives me a constant. If it's a proportion, they have to have the same constant. So the y and the x given to me was 200 microchips makes 8 defective parts. So 200 divided by 8, that's 25 is my k. So I've got to find a new y. Well, y equals that k, 25, times my new x. Well, the new x, how many defective parts are there now? There are 33 of them. So 25 times 33, yes, that does equal 825. And I labeled that one. Let's go on to the next page. Y is directly proportional to x. So they're telling us this y over x will give you a constant. Y is 280 and x equals 56. Write an equation that relates y and x. Well, the equation is y equals kx. I got to figure out what the k is, right? So I'm going to divide y over x to get my k. So 280 divided by 56 will give me a constant of 5. So my equation for this relationship is y equals 5x. Find y when x is 3. Oh, okay. So y equals 5 times, I know what the x is, now it's 3. Oh, y has to be 15. Well, that's easy. Find x when y is 336. How do I solve x? Let me see. I'm going to draw my triangle. How do I get x? Oops. K goes on the left. That's okay. Y equals k times x. How do I get x? I take y and I divide it by k. Okay, so my x is equal to my y divided by my k. Well, they're telling me a new y, 336. I know what the k is, it's 5. What's 336 divided by 5? X would have to equal 67 and 2 tenths. 67 and 2 tenths is the answer there. M varies directly with M. Okay, they're changing the letters. This is still the y. Whatever comes first goes in the top. I just call it y and x, but it's m and n, yes. M's going to be on the top. I know that because it came first. So M directly varies with N. M is 7. Be careful. So I'm going to do Y over X, which is really M over N here, to get my K. M over N. Ooh, don't think this upside down. It's not 28 divided by 7. It's 7 divided by 28. Well, you could reduce this and say, oh, that's equal to the fraction 1/4, or do 7 divided by 28 on the calculator, which is 25 hundredths. So my K is 25 hundredths, or 1/4. So write an equation that relates M, okay, that's the Y, and X. So Y equals KX is now M equals KX. Okay, I'm going to put the decimal in, 25 hundredths N. M equals 25 hundredths N. So they changed the letters. Don't let that throw you. M is really the Y, because it came first. N is really the X. You can use different letters. It's okay. Find M when N is 30. Okay. M equals 25 hundredths times my new N, which is 30. Well, 30 times 25 hundredths equals 7 5/10. Or 7 1/2 for some of you. 7 5/10. Find N now when M is 18. Well, N is like my X, and X is equal to the Y divided by the K, or the M divided by the K. Remember, doesn't matter the letters here. So I'm going to take my M, my new M, which is 18, and divide it by my K, which was 25 hundredths, or I could divide it by 1/4. Maybe it'd be easier if you didn't have the calculator to divide by 1/4, which is keep it, change it, flip it. It's like taking 18 and multiplying it by 4, right? 18 divided by 1/4 is the same thing as 18 times 4 over 1. Well, that's 72. Or use a calculator. 18 divided by 25 hundredths is 72. I'm going to leave number 1 and 2 blank now. Do not do those. We're going to do those in class. So please go to the next page. In each table, B is directly proportional to A. Okay, it's not M and N now. Now it's B and A. B is just like Y. A is just like X. Copy and complete the table. Well, we know how to fill in tables. Y divided by X always has to equal K. So Y over X has to be a constant if it's a proportional. And they said it is proportional. So let's figure out what K is. Y, 12 divided by 4, well, that's 3. So now I know Y equals 3x. That's the equation. Y equals 3x. Y equals KX, right? So if they give me Y, 15, I'm doing the second one here. What's the X got to be? Well, 15 equals 3 times 5. That was easy. So this is a 5. Now they're giving me, and this one they're giving me X. Well, I know that X has to equal my Y divided by my K. So my 19 has to equal what Y? I don't know. I'm calling it B here, right? So I really should put B there, not a Y. Let's put B there. And this is A. Doesn't matter. Divided by my K, which is 3. So what number divided by 3 equals 19? Or I could have just said, oh, 19 times 3, right? Because that's times 3, and that's times 3. 19 times 3, which, here's a division equation. How do you solve it? Multiply both sides by 3. And you get 57 is that Y, or what's now being called B. So this is 57. I'm going to leave number 4, so don't do number 4. Let's go on to number 5. The amount of blood in a person's body, this is true data, by the way. The amount of blood in a person's body, A, quarts, okay, that came first, so I'm calling that Y. A quarts is directly proportional to his or her body weight, W, pounds. So the amount of blood you have in your body is proportional to your body weight. Interesting fact. That's my X. They're calling it A and W. Y equals KX, or A has to equal KW now is the equation. Find the constant of proportionality. a person weighs 128 pounds, has about 4 quarts of blood. That's 128 pounds. That's the W. Has about 4 quarts of blood. That's the A. A person's body's quarts of blood is directly proportional to his or her body weight. So I'm going back to reading this. A came first. A's on the top first. It's proportional to his or her body weight, W. So A over W will give me the constant of proportionality. So the person's amount of blood, A, amount of blood, 4 over their weight, 128. 4 divided by 128 is going to be a very small decimal. But this does reduce to the fraction 1/32. But I'm going to figure out what 1 divided by 32 is. It happens to be this long decimal, 0, 3, 1, 2, 5, which is 3,125 hundred thousandths. Write an equation that relates the amount of blood in a person's body to his or her body weight. Well, it's got to be A equals KW. So the amount of blood has to be my K, which is that long decimal, 3,125 hundred thousandths, times my weight. If I wanted to figure mine out, I could use that formula. Take my weight, multiply it by 3,125 hundred thousandths, and that'll tell me approximately how many quarts of blood I have. Might do that. Find the weight of a person whose body has about 5 quarts of blood. That's A. Y, because it came first. A is the same thing as Y, right? Came first. So W is the X, A is the Y, K is the constant. So my weight, what is it? I don't know. What would that person's weight be? It would be the A, 5, divided by 3,125 hundred thousandths. And that comes out to be 160 pounds. 160 pounds would be that answer. I'm not going to save all of these. So we got our constant of proportionality, our K, by dividing A by W. Then we got the formula, A equals KW, Y equals KX. Then we found an X by dividing Y by K or A by K. W is the X. 160 pounds. I'm going to leave number 6. So don't do number 6, and we're going to go on. The total weight of N soccer balls is M ounces. M is directly proportional to N. M comes first. That's the Y. This is the X. And N is 12 and M is 54. Find the weight of the soccer ball. So M divided by N is going to give me per 1 soccer ball. That's asking me to find the K, the constant of proportionality. So if I take 54 and I divide it by 12, I'm going to get 4 and 5/10 ounces per soccer ball. It doesn't just say find K. It says find the weight per soccer ball. It's 4.5 ounces per soccer ball. Write an equation that relates that. Well, M, which is like the Y, equals 4 and 5/10, not 0.45. Let me fix that. 4 and 5/10 N. Find the value of M when N is 30. So I have the equation here. Why do I keep doing that? 4 and 5/10 times N, which is 30. So just go ahead and multiply, and you get M is 135 ounces. 135 ounces. I'm going to leave number 8, and I'm going to leave number 13 to do in class. Let's go on to number 18. It takes Christy 2 hours to paint 5 model boats. How long will it take her to paint 10? Okay, well, 2 hours. That's the Y. 5 boats. 2 hours to paint 5 boats. How long will it take her to paint 10? Well, that's easy. Just multiply by 2, right? I can do this equal ratio way. So times 2, I'm going to get 4 hours. How long will it take her? 4 hours. I'm not going to sable this. How many model boats can she paint in 10 hours? Okay. So 2 hours makes 5. How many boats does she do in 10 hours? Oh, well, this is an equal ratio. Very easy equal ratio question. 2 times 5 makes 10, so 5 times 5 would be 25. So she could do 25 boats in 10 hours time. Last question, number 20, because I'm not going to do number 22. An initial amount of money deposited in a bank account that earns interest is called the principal. So the first money that you put in is the principal, not like principal done. In the table below, P stands for the principal, the money that you put in the bank for your savings, for instance. And I stands for the interest earned by that principal for a period of 1 year at a particular bank. At this bank, the interest came first, for a period of 1 year is directly proportional to the principal. So this is the Y, this is the X. Interest is first, principal is second, Y and X. So we've got to fill in the table. I have a Y and an X already here. So if I do Y over X, if I do Y over X, 15 over 600, I get a constant. Well, that does reduce to the fraction 1/40th, but if I actually do 1 divided by 40 or 15 divided by 600, I get 25 thousandths. 25 thousandths. Write a direct proportion relating the rate that relates I with P. So I is the Y, so I is the Y equals KX. My K is 25 thousandths. My X is the P. So I equals 25 thousandths P. Copy and complete the table. So here, I've got to find the interest. The interest would be equal to 25 thousandths times the principal of 1,000. So to figure out this value here, I multiply 25 thousandths times 1,000. Well, that just gives me the answer, 25. So this answer is 25. To figure out my X, I'm going to, or my P as they're calling it, I'm going to take my interest and divide it by my K. So I would take 56 and divide it by 25 thousandths, and I would get $2,240. And that's it for today. The rest of the review we're going to work on in class.